I saw her sitting in the rain, raindrops falling on her. She didn't seem to care. She sat there and smiled at me.
You're in the gray zone.
Then I did.
This is listener-supported crime podcasting from high atop the HMS Bounty right here in Koreatown, USA. I'm Mark Ebner. I'm a multi-award-winning journalist, a New York Times best-selling author, and I'm a private investigator. And I'm sitting here with Dr. David Robinson.
How's it going?
Good. I'm glad you're here, my man. And we're missing funny man Carl Kozlowski this afternoon. Apparently he's on a bus heading towards Las Vegas. With apologies to Mr. Tom Waits. He ain't got no spare. He ain't got no jack. He don't give a shit. He ain't coming back. Just you and me, David.
Ready to rock.
All right. So what? So it's Oscars. It's Academy Award weekend. Jeez. You know, the last time I actually set my eyes on an actual Oscar statuette, it was covered with KY jelly and regret. I swear to God, true story.
Same owner of the KY jelly and the regret?
Oh, yeah. Well, the regret was twofold. Let me say that. You know, I might tell that story on The Gray Zone, and I may not, depending on how I feel. But today I want you to meet someone who I call the bagman. He once jabbed a pencil into the throat of a child predator who forced a 14-year-old boy into pornography and prostitution. He shook down a tabloid editor in his office for a long overdue debt, went home, put his gun away, and wrote a letter to the Better Business Bureau about that tabloid skell and his shady business practices. He has conducted a regular, consistent, and extremely lucrative business with the tabloids. Eddie Murphy, Michael Jackson, the heterosexual Tom Cruise, Robert Blake, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and OJ. He brokered information on all of them. Over the past 35 years, Paul Baresi, the bagman, has trafficked in the most disgusting troughs of decadence and despair the culture of Hollywood has ever produced. Meet Paul Baresi, porn star, porn director, private investigator. He's the real-life Ray Donovan. Did I say Donovan?
I'm not. I was just kind of listening to your words, and I'm thinking, wow, like he's private detective, public dick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he's the first, last, and probably only porn star private investigator. And yes, he's the real life Ray Donovan. He is the bagman. Ray Donovan. Now, who's that actor that stars?
Liev Schreiber?
Liev Schreiber. The only thing I wanted to say about him is, A, he's a great actor, and B, I'll never forget when I was writing for Premiere Magazine back in the 90s, and a little movie premiered that he was starring in called Denise Calls Up, and I had to do a little profile on him. And in that profile, and he will have my undying respect, Liev Schreiber will, in that I straight up asked him, I said, have you ever had phone sex? And sure enough, he did, to rehearse for the role. Now that's a man after my own heart. Gotta say. So the bagman, I met him researching my lamentable story for the late great Spy magazine on the gay mafia in Hollywood. Now you might be saying, gay mafia in Hollywood, snore. Yeah, we know. But back then, in the early to mid 90s, there actually was a velvet mafia in Hollywood. Now, I say the story was lamentable, not because I decided to name names, but because of an editorial decision at Spy that essentially took my thesis about how great it would be if everyone was out of the closet. I mean, my thesis was, there wouldn't be any glass ceilings at the executive suites of Disney, and there wouldn't be no need for a gay mafia if everybody was out of the closet. Blah, 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 blah. But what my editor did was he sort of said, you know what, we're Spy Magazine, we're not an apologist publication, and he cut my whole thesis off the end of the story, and it came off like a homophobic diatribe, and I wasn't down with that. But during my research for that story about the gay mafia in Hollywood, I met for the first time who we will come to know as the bagman, Mr. Paul Baresi. And he told me in detail about his sexual relationship with John Travolta and how when that went south,
so to speak.
Yeah, right. When that went south, he thought it, and to illustrate how far south it went, on their last romantic adventure at the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles, California, I guess Travolta decided that he was going to break up with Paul. He was done having these liaisons with him at the Four Seasons. And he said, whatever he said, I'm not going to see you anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. He said, here, you can have this. And he handed him a half-eaten gift basket from the Four Seasons Hotel. I mean, he had already taken a bite out of the apple, as metaphorical as that sounds. Don't do that to Paul Baresi. And the thing about it is, he wasn't lying. I mean, listen, my bullshit detector goes off the charts when someone wants, when I'm sitting with someone and trying to extract a story out of them, if they're in it for money, if they want something from me, that's when my bullshit detector goes through the charts. And Paul Baresi gave it up for fun and for free. And in that he did that, tell me his story about having sex with John Travolta in detail. He's been a lifelong source and friend ever since, Baresi's now in his 60s. He shares the rugged good looks of a young Burt Reynolds, even at that age. He grew up hard scrabble in Saugus, Massachusetts, and then after a stint in the Air Force, he came to Hollywood with everyone else with dreams of stardom in the 70s. And as fate would have it, he was discovered on a movie set where he was doing some bit player work. And he wasn't discovered, and launched into motion picture fame, but he was picked up for a March 1974 Playgirl spread with Mistress of the Dark, Cassandra Peterson. So, now he's, bare-assed in Playgirl magazine. And, of course, life becomes sort of like a real-life Boogie Nights for him. Gay porn, straight porn. It didn't really matter. It got me scratching my head. And I said to him, Paul, and this is when he had me over to his house and I was interviewing him further. Well, his beautiful wife is in the kitchen cooking us a spaghetti dinner. I said, Paul, how can you be a straight man and do gay porn? And he looked at me and he said, Mark, it's simple. My dick gets hard for money. And that was his answer. And you know what? I bought it. I mean, who am I to judge, right? So in 1982, Travolta had his eyes on this Burt Reynolds lookalike, Paul Baresi, and one day he followed him into the shower room of a Los Angeles health club, and it was on. Well, they had sex dozens of times after that, And I suppose his reward for his cameo appearing naked, how can I explain this? His reward for his intimacy with one John Travolta was apparently Travolta got him cast in a cameo, appearing naked in a jockstrap, actually, in the unfortunate homoerotic aerobics industry motion picture Perfect, starring Olivia Newton-John and, yes, John Travolta, as produced by, no shocker, Jan Wenner from Rolling Stone magazine.
Wasn't it Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yes. What did I say?
You said Olivia Newton-John.
Olivia Newton-John. Yeah. I think she did.
She did Grease.
But no, I think she had something to do with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But yes, it was Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta starred in that. And if you've ever seen it, smoke a fat one, put it on, and you will die, watching John Travolta in his little tight gym shorts, thrusting his pelvis with a really sick, demented smile on his face. Yeah. And so anyway, that movie puts John Travolta and the bagman, Paul Baresi, together on celluloid forever. So, like I was saying, Baresi famously inserted himself into some of the biggest scandals in recent Hollywood history. But the story I worked with him on that made the most waves was the one about Eddie Murphy, Good Samaritan. Remember, I think it was in 1997, 1996, when Murphy got popped in his car with a transgender prostitute in Hollywood, claiming he was just trying to help her out. You remember that, Dave?
Yeah, it was a rainy night, and he was giving her a ride home in the rain.
Right. Good Samaritan. Well, almost a year to the wee hour of Eddie Murphy's world-famous late-night Mercy date, the very pretty Samoan transsexual hooker, Addison Seuuli, say that 3 times fast, Dave, Addison Seuuli, otherwise known as Shalimar, she died in a fall from her apartment house on Berendo Street in Hollywood. And her body was found in a pool of blood, clad only in a black bra with silicone pouches and a black leather bikini thong. The young woman struck the pavement with such force that her nasal bone was driven right through her skull into her brain. Fingernail scrape marks trailed eerily down the building's facade. Was this a hit? Was someone fearing she was going to finally go to the tabloids with her tell-all about their encounter? I mean, it would have been easy for a guy like Eddie Murphy to call some of his guys in L.A. and toss her out that window, right? I mean, I smelled something really, really bad on Berendo Street when I visited that crime scene. When the detective lifted her face off the pavement, there was a death mask of mascara mirroring her face into the pavement. So, my mind, forgive me, it always goes to the very worst. Anyway, so my investigation began, and what I discovered was not so much a murder story as it was a story about how far celebrities and their handlers would go to protect their clients. And that's where the bagman came in. Baresi was retained by none other than, and you'll hear his name on this show quite a bit, celebrity damage control lawyer Marty the Pitbull Singer. And his job was, Baresi's job was to round up all the transgender prostitutes who had, in a rush around Eddie Murphy getting popped with Addison Shalimar Seuuli in Hollywood on a rainy night. Everyone came out of the woodworks. I remember they used to hang around at a place called Oh, gosh, what was that place on Santa Monica? Yukon Mining Company. I don't think it's there anymore.
No, I think that's because I used to live in that neighborhood, so I would drive down that part of Santa Monica. That was where the Trader Joe's, like right around there. Yeah,
exactly. Well, back in the day, it was where